There's a lot of data being created, but the actual intelligence being, pulled out of it, there's still a lot to do there.
So, hello everyone, this is a new episode talking with Wall & Case, and I want to welcome all our listeners as well as viewers. So, my name is Miloš, as you know, and Enterprise Manager at Wall & Case, and today I would like to introduce one person that I very much admire and who I'm respecting all this time, and we know each other for some time already, John Robotham, who is Head and General Manager of Enterprise Solutions at Lenovo. John, welcome.
Thanks, Miloš. Yeah, good to see you again.
It's a real pleasure, and I know we were organizing this for some time. It's hot summer now. Hopefully we are at the end of pandemic, and I wanted to grab the opportunity really to talk with you about some things that this pandemic affected and changes that are undergoing definitely in the technology industry per se, cloud, virtualization, data center, colocation, all these aspects that we are going. So for that sake, I wanted to understand better from your perspective, what do you think, in what times we are living now when it comes to the usage of increased usage of cloud computing and virtualization technology as well?
Yeah, thanks, Miloš. I think, as you say, the pandemic has really changed things, I think, globally. And there's often jokes around about, how much, the CIOs and customers and IT organizations are driving digital transformation versus COVID-19. Yes. And so I think the joke is that COVID-19 has done so much more. And, there's a lot of CEOs around talking about that. But I think, one of the things that's interesting about the pandemic area is that it has actually accelerated what we were going to do anyway, I think. Certainly see that in Japan. I've been in Japan for many, many years, 17 plus years now. But, it's been one of the government's main priorities to drive workforce innovation and get people to, work remotely. That really hasn't happened until COVID hit last year. And then suddenly it is enabled overnight almost. And I think certainly in the IT area, that has caused a lot of issues that I think our customers and in IT departments in various different companies have had to really deal with in a very short period of time to keep the businesses running.
Yeah. So do you think in that sake, especially if you're talking about business community on one side and government as entities and its bodies on the other side, how you think how they were prepared, or are they utilizing the data and its power at its full, or are there some places for improvement at the moment that you can see, because data has been this powerful force moving everything? It's not the problem of collecting it and even storaging. Lenovo basically is a testament to it, that you have capability of storing large amounts of data, but moving forward, how to analyze that and use that data to have meaningful contribution to a work and to a life from both perspectives. So what do you think, what would be places basically, what should we do better, what we are not using, and what the problems we are facing here?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of data. We all know the term big data. Perhaps a lot of people don't really know what the point of it is, right? And as you say, I mean, we've created a lot of data over many, many years, and the pace of creation has only increased. I think we've seen a lot of those graphs where, the actual amount of storage used or the amount of data created, probably 90+% of it was created in the last 2 years.
Wow.
Right? And so those type of stats really come out, but the whole point of it is that we have a lot of devices, a lot of different tools that we have that are creating data. So Lenovo is certainly that. We have, PC share #1 in the world.
Yeah.
That creates a lot of data. And so, to your point, I mean, the point is though, there's a lot of data, but what do you do with it, right? And I think Certainly at Lenovo, what we try to push is not just digital transformation, but intelligent transformation. And the point of that is not just to digitally transform something and get it into, you know, cloud-based and, you know, perhaps hybrid cloud and all those sort of newest, latest in technologies. That's great. But the whole purpose of it should be that it gives you personally or from a business perspective more intelligence, right, out of what you're trying to do. And when you create the data, you don't know how relevant it is or anything. There's a lot of work that needs to go into that. IT compute power, pretty much, that needs to go through and crunch all of the data and understand how to make sense of it. And if you can make more sense of it quicker, then you win. And so I think out in the marketplace right now, certainly IT world, a lot of our customers, that pace of innovation and also pace of analyzing and making sense and extracting intelligence out of the data itself expires really quickly. I mean, the usage of it, some of it doesn't, but a lot of it does. And the speed of how you can take advantage of that for your business, or personally, really, that's going to be the key. And that's certainly what we're trying to do in the marketplace as well.
So do you think that business community is faster adapting to this change and using data on everyday basis compared to government, whether in Japan or elsewhere? And I've been known that you, besides here, you have been dealing with various different markets from, you know, Australia, Southeast Asia, global even, global accounts, global markets. Are governments also responding in similar fast pace as the business community is adapting to it?
Yeah, I think it's probably you know, fairly standard that, you know, the governments will probably move slower than, you know, commercial companies, right? Private companies, public companies. More in the commercial world, I think there's a pace of innovation and drive for speed that's not as prevalent within the government areas, I think. And there's a good reason for that. I think governments are there to make sure that we're stable. We try to get you know, a lot of resources in the right place. And so, you know, the pace of innovation being high is not necessarily priority one on the government's list. But I think that, you know, there's probably more that the government could do to help speed things up. Certainly in Japan, I think that's starting to change. You know, we hear a lot about Society 5.0.
Yeah.
And that's a key element within, you know, the plan, I guess, for the Japanese government. And we're leading the world in aged population. And so, you know, hey, there's a big issue there, right? And so I think the government has certainly a role in understanding how we can use technology to make that better. And, you know, the crux of Society 5.0 is certainly that, right? You know, trying to link the virtual IT world with the physical and try to make it more useful. And so there's a lot of things in there that requires a lot of innovation and investment within IT, you know, systems and tools and processes that I think will add more to society going forward. So I think the government certainly has a role, and I feel that it's definitely trying hard to speed that up. And then the companies in the commercial world, I think, have to really, you know, work together to really get that going, specifically for Japan. And we should lead the world, you know, leveraging AI and IT solutions to help the elderly and an aged population and a decreasing population, right?
Yeah, definitely, I would agree with you on that, because last year I remember in May, like Japanese government, they enacted a bill about smart city projects that they are trying to help local communities get faster digitalized, especially in terms of digital transformation and fostering that public-private partnerships for that sake. So let's hope that that works, because that's opportunity for IoT to come into focus as well, and also all other aspects that digital technology can help aging population or solving a lot of I would say emerging local problems that as citizens of Japan we are facing more and more. Not that the case, I would say, if you are one of the highest developed societies, it requires a lot of things to maintain the quality of life. So I would agree with you for that sake, especially when it comes to 5G, when it comes to also now remote working and collaboration software that we are using. And this is to segue back to that data aspect of it. That means we are more and more need to use network power, data power, and few days ago, basically, Japan broke a record in internet speed again. It was something like, I think, 300 terabits per second, which I was like, oh my God, I would like to have this. I would download everything in one day, basically.
I think, as you say, the data aspect is important. I think we agree on that. And the speed, right? So download speeds, network speeds. My point before, I guess, is that our customers are certainly looking for ways to make sense of the data really quickly. And so network speed with 5G is certainly one of them. And so, we're quite fortunate at Lenovo that we have Motorola Group as part of our overall Lenovo Group. And obviously, around data and mobile technology, 5G, moving to 5G, a lot of what we learn in that space, we're able to utilize in our server and PC platforms. And so how you get connected devices, you want everything to be connected. We have a business unit that focuses on connectivity, and a lot of that technology and know-how actually gets spread out into different areas. So certainly within my area of what we call, enterprise solutions, right? We've actually renamed it as Infrastructure Solutions Group. So we call it ISG internally.
Okay.
But we focus on solutions, right? And so one of the key things there is, what do we do in edge computing? So it's not all about the data center. It's not all about public cloud, which is really another big data center. It's about the edge as well. So how much processing do you actually do at the edge versus in data centers? It's about how fast you can transfer data. That's one. 5G will help there. But it's also about, maybe you don't need to transfer at all. That still takes time, still costs money to transfer data. So more and more of what we're trying to focus on is, how much processing power do you need at the edge to make sense of this data? So that could be, looking at use cases where you're doing maintenance on bridges, right?
Yeah.
That's not a data center, but you would go out with a drone and take photos of things. Now, photos or videos are very heavy, right, in terms of data, load, right, and size of files, etc. So what you really want to do is say, well, how much of that do you really want to transfer to the data center or even to public cloud, and how much do you want to process and analyze near the actual site that you're actually trying to analyze? So these are the sort of things that we try to work out and build solutions for at Lenovo as well.
What's current solutions you have for that? I mean, that would be like mobile storage and processing of data, for that sake, like on the spot when you're talking about edge. In that sake. So what solutions Lenovo is developing right now?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a suite of products that we've already started bringing out and will bring out around edge computing, and so that spans our total Lenovo group. So it could be from simple things, from gateways and that type of thing, IoT gateways, through to actual edge servers that people who know a server, they're pretty heavy, they're pretty big. But this is something you can hold in one hand, and it's probably twice as big as a PC, maybe quarter as big as a server. And what that does is that it's got a lot of resilience, both physical and virtual security. So if anyone tampers with it, you'll know, and it deletes all the data. So there's a lot of that sort of security around. But also we focus a lot on software to help automate and manage that. Because if you have a bunch of servers in one place in a data center, it's still hard to manage. But it's easier to manage than to have 500 servers spread out all around the place in very remote areas, right? So one, you want it to be very rugged and sturdy and reliable. That's one. But you also want it to be able to easily install it, right, wherever it is, and also maintain it. So we actually focus a lot on that. We actually have a leading product right now called an SE350, which is an edge server. And that's one of the areas and the core of what we sort of focus on. And that platform itself, even you can actually put GPUs in it to do some AI type workloads at the edge. So yeah, we're doing a lot of that aspect to try and accelerate some of that solution growth.
Yeah, so I would say that combined, especially for on-spot graphic design or solutions that, especially if it's increased graphic power, data for graphic power and processing and for CAD solution, that would be something amazing to have. I mean, in terms of construction, let's say.
Absolutely, you're right.
Wow. So Lenovo, besides that, have been known for hyperconvergence as well. And when I spoke with quite some number of people, that is becoming more and more buzzword besides cloud and so on. But still, it sounds really futuristic. It sounds really complex, and I know it is definitely. But having in mind that hyperconvergence, combines storage as well as network into one and computing into one system. But how would you define it as being in the front load of it?
Yeah, so certainly our job, you mentioned it's complex, right? Certainly I wouldn't discount that in a lot of customer data centers. I mean, there's a lot of complexity in there. And one of the key goals of hyperconverged systems, we call them HCI, hyperconverged infrastructure, is to really take out some of that complexity. So I wouldn't say, hey, we're going to completely simplify your data center, but certainly modernizing and simplifying your data center is a first step to try and get more newer technologies in. Basically makes it easier to manage, probably less effort to manage, and makes the whole IT environment more flexible. So as to your point, storage, compute, and networking, all managed, using standard x86 servers, is pretty compelling. And also you can, basically expand the footprint if you need to fairly easily, depending on what you want to do. And really, that's kind of a first step to try and, completely virtualize. So, when we talk about virtualization, a lot of time it's a virtual server, right, on a system using ESX and VMware type technology a lot of the time. But, when you actually look at these type of hyperconverged, it's really a private cloud. And so it's easier to automate, the deployment of new systems, and a lot less time to do it. Plus, as you sort of move along, you have the ability potentially to shift workloads into public cloud and back again, and so you get into a more hybrid cloud type environment going down the track. Now, getting into HCI and hyperconverged systems is certainly one step towards having that type of a really flexible and nimble and very responsive IT environment for your business.
So basically, what you're trying to say is as well that with hyperconvergence, actually we can shift between types of clouds in a way from a private, public, and to hybrid model as well.
It certainly puts you on the path to it. There's a lot of dependencies there, and that's quite difficult. For example, what do you do at the application layer, right? So certainly the infrastructure layer, yes, it's possible. Hyperconverged infrastructure will allow you to get down to that level and start shifting things around a lot more flexibly than without hyperconverged. But if you wanted to shift into a hybrid cloud environment, what do you do with the data? What data do you have where? What do you need to transfer across the public and back? What do you keep in both places? But also in the application itself, there's a lot of dependencies on things, right? And so how you run things on premise may not be the same as how you run things on a public cloud. And so the technology really that everybody's focused on now is containerization, right? So you want to put the application in a container, and then you really have flexibility, but there's a lot of difficulties in doing that as well. So I think really coming back to hyperconverged, what I would say that Lenovo is trying to do is really help customers get on that path. There's still a lot of steps to get to perhaps where the customer wants to go, but hyperconverged systems is certainly something that we're really trying to help our customers with to get them on the path to modernizing their data centers and really have a more multi-cloud environment down the track to make really the whole IT environment and systems and tools more responsive to the business. And back to our original point, trying to make sense of all that data and get it back into the system so you can make good decisions and grow the company.
Yeah, definitely. We dive deep now because having in mind infrastructure, platform, and then at the end of the day, application side, things are getting more and more complex, and we want to simplify it at this moment. So you mentioned x86 server business. I remember 7 years ago, Lenovo acquired that business from IBM. And from this perspective, what do you think? How good or bad in this regard was that decision? I mean, definitely was good having in mind that a lot of business of Lenovo flourished with it, but what impact it had on the company that was till recently known for more mobile application side, like laptops and mobiles as well, and wearables also to some extent. So yeah, please, I'm talking too much.
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember as well that Lenovo
Yeah.
actually bought IBM's PC company
Yeah.
as well, way back,
Yeah.
about 10 years prior to that. And you know, it took a fair few years, but I think it was probably about 7 or 8 years, if I remember correctly, that Lenovo was able to get to the #1 position globally in PCs after making that acquisition from IBM. So with servers, Lenovo, we actually just pretty much the same sort of thing, and acquired the business from IBM back in 2014. So I think, you know, that move allowed us to be much more of a solution provider, which we're even doubling down on now. We've changed our organization, all those things. We can talk about that later. But I think, you know, one of the things that acquisition allowed us to do was to really, you know, increase the breadth of our ability to solve problems that can be solved through IT, right? So PCs are really, PC in the whole ecosystem is very important. It's the gateway to the user, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot of things that can be done on the client side, but there's a lot more that needs to be done in the data center, in public clouds, at the edge as well. And that's becoming much, much more important now, as I think we all know. So that acquisition itself is very, very key for us to be able to do the type of things that we're trying to do now. So for example, I mean, you know, a lot of people don't know that Lenovo actually has a #1 share in high performance computing systems globally.
Wow.
And how we measure that is that there are top 500 computers. There's a list that's published, you know, I think every 6 months or so it's refreshed. And we have about 182 systems, I think, the last count, out of the 500. So it's about 36% share of all of the systems in top 500 of high-performance computing. Now, obviously, if we didn't acquire the business and focus on that, focus on high performance, high reliability, there's no way in the world that we'd be on that list. And a lot of people don't know that. Now, I'll be honest, before I joined Lenovo, I didn't know that. But it's incredible how much we're focusing on those type of things. And back to your question, I mean, without that acquisition, we wouldn't be able to do that. And when we look at, you know, high performance computing and HPC systems, the same principles of what we do in HPC is very, very relevant to AI. So the same type of systems and clusters that we use for, you know, looking at genomes and things like that are just as relevant when we're trying to work out, you know, make sense of business data, right? All the unstructured data that is out there that we're creating. Same sort of principle, different algorithm, you know, different data, but a lot of that sort of compute power is just as required there. So we're actually doing a lot of work to bridge that gap and make it more useful, and the knowledge and the experience and the success that we've had in HPC, how to make that just as relevant, if not more relevant, to our business customers and the commercial side, you know, as we move forward and the world becomes more AI focused and, you know, data focused.
What about, I would say, you mentioned, you know, HPC there, but what about supercomputing? Are there any breakthroughs from your side?
Yeah, I mean, basically HPC is supercomputing, right? And so, yeah, I mean, supercomputing from our side, you know, breakthroughs, I guess if we look at it, one of the things that I think will become more and more important as we move forward is that I think we all know, we almost expect that compute power just keeps getting more and more intensive and powerful every year, every 18 months, according to Moore's law, although that's getting difficult these days.
Exponential.
Yeah, and we expect that compute power is going to keep getting more and more powerful as time goes on, right? Now, the demerit of that, or the minus of that, negative of that, is that it uses more and more power, which generates more and more heat. Right? And then we've got to use more power to cool it down, especially in these massive data centers. So one of the things that we're focusing on right now is water-cooled technology for a lot of these high-end supercomputer, you know, HPC workloads, is to look at how you can cool down servers, not with air and fans, but with actual water. So water actually goes through the servers and cools down all the chips, it cools down memory, it cools down disk, and we're working on power supply, those type of things. And so actually using water is heaps more efficient much more environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
So that sort of thing is really just not a matter of if that's going to happen, but when, especially in our current trend. And we've already got that technology. So if you ask about breakthrough technology in that area, that's something that, again, I'm trying really hard to get our customers to understand in Japan as well, because electricity is expensive here as well.
Definitely. I mean, this is something first time I'm hearing, because I was focused, and I'm always trying to find out new cool places where you can build data center. I know that in Russia, they did it. They created this heating system using a data center, because it's creating a lot of energy and a lot of warmth. So it was generating a lot of heat, and on that was one side. The other thing, I'm always thinking you can put data centers in Antarctica to cool down.
That would help, right?
But it will melt all the water, basically ice.
But it's a big problem, right?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
As we keep going, we just put more and more computers in, keep ramping up the power. But the cooling is really important, because it generates, you use just as much power, especially hot days like now, right? The air conditioning is really important. But if you use water cooled, that water has an amazing ability to cool stuff down.
Yeah.
And you don't have to make it like 5 degrees or anything, right? This is in, it's like 30 plus degrees, 40 plus degrees. It's still cooler than a server will be, and it's very efficient. And in fact, we have, a large instance in Germany on LRZ, or LRZ if you're American. And that is one instance where it's a very, very big workload. It was in the top 10 for a little while. I think it might have dropped down a bit. But the system of that is using our Neptune technology, which is water cooled, and it basically utilizes all the heat and then heats up other areas of the building. And it's very, very eco-friendly in how that whole building itself is designed, and leveraging the heat that's created out of the servers, crunching data and getting intelligence out of data and everything, utilizing that heat to then heat other areas of the building, and reusing that to a degree that's extremely efficient.
Are there any plans to build that in Japan?
I want to do something like that. And so all I really need is, a customer that's willing to work with me, and a lot of data center providers understand this is coming, but it really requires customers to be on board as well. So we're working on that one.
Okay, definitely. So having said that, and especially the all cool stuff that you are building, it seems to me that Lenovo seems to be one of the few companies that actually has multiple products and services. I mean, end to end. From mobile devices till servers, storage, networking, data center colocation, all 9 yards. I would say. So, what do you think compared to competition that you're having, and who basically you have, I guess, multiple competitors on different landscapes and different spheres, but. What's uniqueness of Lenovo? Like, how would you define that, and what do you think? What's your USP, unique selling point?
Yeah, I think how we differentiate ourselves. There are some standard points, and I've mentioned a few. So we're number one share in PC, which, as we said, is how we generate the data. So having the view into users and having 25% plus share, and we have even higher share in Japan. I think that helps to build a platform of how IoT works, right? Because when you have PC, you have a lot of peripheral devices, etc. The other aspect, as we talked about, is Motorola. So compared to our competitors, nobody else has a mobile phone arm. And it's quite a difficult business to be in, really. It's quite competitive. But you learn a lot. And what I sort of mentioned before is that the world is moving to faster data transfer, faster networking, right? Which is, we call 5G right now, which is the next phase. So 5G is something that we absolutely have a direct need to invest in through our Motorola group and Motorola business unit. And we can share a lot of the learnings into other product development that we do. That's definitely differentiating from our customers and from our competitors. And our customers are really looking for what to do in that area. Like, how do we we've all heard about 5G, what do we do, So we've already got a roadmap of products that takes that into account. Based on a lot of the work that we've already done in that space. And we work very, very closely with telcos, obviously, globally, in terms of what that development is happening. We help them. We also look at the commercial side of what's necessary in the business, but also in government side. So balancing all of that and looking at our technology roadmap in terms of that expectation is going to be super, super important as we move forward. And it's something that I think at Lenovo that is a differentiator for us. And if we look at it, I mean, we all want faster, more reliable compute. And we do that. I mean, we actually sell to, I think it was 7 out of the 10, mega clouds, and on that cloud, public cloud side of things, we're doing a lot of work. And we have a lot of flexibility in our supply chain and how we deliver things to our customers. We have a lot of factories that we own that we manage, and so that flexibility is certainly there. It allows us to be a very super customized, and little changes we do impacts the customers in good ways. And so that there are a lot of those things that we're looking at that combined, I guess, gives us an advantage that our competitors don't have.
I see. So recently, your CEO, Yuan King, he mentioned basically that Lenovo will be focusing on this 3S strategy, where it's what it includes. Like, I guess it's something smart, but can you let us know what it is?
Well, you're right. I mean, S stands for smart.
Yes.
So 3S is actually something that YY, we call him YY, our CEO. He's been talking about it for at least 3 years, I think. So it's been recently that we've tried to really message out more about it. And part of the reason for that is that, when we talk about 3S, 3 aspects. One is smart IoT. So this is all the stuff that we've been talking about, devices and a lot of things around PC, etc., that we're already very strong in. But that's something that leads very much into Internet of Things. And so that's one area of the strategy, one pillar. The other is smart infrastructure, and smart infrastructure is more the area that I'm looking at, which is the data center plus edge and compute power, right? Generating data, what to do with the data, and try to analyze and get some intelligence out of it. And a third S is more around smart verticals, which is obviously what vertical is. So we're trying to understand more about our customers and the industries that they're in, and get our services arm to really start looking at how we can pull all of the good stuff we have together for their business problem. So they're the sort of 3 S's. We have smart IoT, smart infrastructure, and then smart verticals. And from April of this year, which is our new financial year, we actually aligned our organization globally to that 3S strategy. So it will enable us, hopefully, to accelerate that and the value that we can provide to our customers.
Okay. So you would say that in past like 5, 6, 7 years, from becoming a device company to becoming holistic, this enterprise technology plus device company, like it had similar path with some other companies that were in e-commerce area and then entered into cloud computing as well. But what do you think? What's the ratio or share for that matter of enterprise technology that compared to other verticals within Lenovo?
Yes, I mean, in terms of the enterprise technology side of things, that's a massively growing area. So there's a lot of investment that we're making in that, and making use of all of the good things that we have in Lenovo and delivering value to our customers in that space. And so that ratio, we're still, very big on the PC side. And I think a lot of our customers understand that we do great PCs, and we look at that side of things. And depending on the market we're in, a lot of the customers don't know the strength that we have in the infrastructure side on the back end data center edge. So we're working on that, and that's a highly growing area because there's a lot of demand. And we're working really hard to make sure that our customers understand that we can deliver good solutions for them.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. And one of the things that I've been recently intrigued. There have been recent changes globally, and Lenovo being multinational company covering all world, like being in all the continents, there is this complexity of geopolitical situation and adaptability to each place where is the place of business, basically. So how you are, as a company, coping with that complexity of entanglement and different standards in different areas, and I would say governmental standards for each of the country, and then how that affects globally the business. I mean, most international and multinational companies are dealing with the same problem. So how you are dealing with it?
Yeah, I mean, luckily for us, I guess, is that we are a truly global company, and so we have many factories around the globe that we're able to manufacture goods in. So, depending on how things happen, and even where we have certain parts for certain things that we need to source wherever, we have a lot of flexibility in how we can manufacture our solutions for our customers. And so, because of those manufacturing sites, the global aspect of it. That's something that we haven't really seen too much of a negative impact, and we've been able to manage through that pretty well.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. So, no, I would say one of the things that I usually hear, if you are not so much in the news when it comes to those aspects, politically, you're doing very well. So I didn't hear much about Lenovo, which I would say you're navigating in those waters really very well. On the other side, what I've heard recently, as being, a recruiting professional, recruiting consultant, people overall, on the mention of Lenovo as a company, they seem to be, there is more attraction than, I would say, repulsion in that sense. Like, it seems that you are, like, as an employer, becoming more and more attractive. Like, so what have changed recently, and why people like joining Lenovo?
Yeah, I think really, it's a fun place to be if you want to, have some flexibility in what you want to go after, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, for us, I think we're a challenger in the market, certainly. And I think the good thing about that is that we have a lot of flexibility in how we want to do things. And so what that hopefully translates to, certainly from my position, is it's speed to market, and that we're able to respond quicker to customers. There's not as much, red tape, if I put it that way, to do certain things. And we want to try and focus on the right things that are, that will deliver value. But that's certainly something that we want to do. And I think, from a cultural perspective as well, within Lenovo, we try to keep it a really flat organization. We want to try to get to the heart of a problem quickly. And so we kind of try to, minimize or eliminate as much as possible a lot of the sort of hierarchical inefficiencies of saying, I can't say that to my boss, or, if it's a problem that a customer has or a partner has that we need to fix, then we just need to talk openly about it and not blame somebody for it. And so, well, how do we fix it? And I think that's something that we do reasonably well. So
I see. So, that's one of the things that we are trying to solve is understanding each other's motivation. So one of the things besides doing recruitment, we have been recently also successfully becoming I would say, software company, but for HR software. So our solution usually helps. It's called Attuned, and it helps mostly dealing with motivation, internal intrinsic motivator of people, and helping managers understand better their employees. For example, if I'm maybe driven by competition, you are by progress, and in that regard, as my manager, you might be understanding what drives me better and what was in your blind spot before. For now, it helped us a lot. But how you have been dealing? You mentioned you are more flat organization right now, comparing. Of course, there is a hierarchy. Being such a large organization, it has to be. But how you are, as being a head of whole business and managing managers and directors, how you are dealing with from that management perspective, that your message be translated to that person that just recently joined, let's say, company.
Yeah. So I try to communicate with people throughout the organization, and so a couple of times a month I'll gather people together and ask my assistant to just sort of pick some people at random to spend a little bit of time with me, just half an hour to an hour, and we just talk about anything, right? A lot of the time we talk about business. There's some things that always come up and whatever, and as it is a lot of the time in Japan, there's a bit of silence at the beginning, so I'll crack a few jokes and I'll tell them what I did or what I ate for dinner last night, or try to sort of make it a very easily to talk to environment. But then after that, we really get to some of the crux of the problems that we're seeing in the business. And so I think if the people had their manager around or something, so I can't say that because that might be bad for my manager. But just having that environment where we can talk freely. And the important thing is that if I do hear something, I don't go to their manager and say, I heard this about you or about the. I don't ever do that. So I make sure that there's a trust and not confidentiality necessarily, but. I don't want to point fingers at people, as I mentioned. I think that's something that, if people are going to voice out how to fix a problem, they need to know that people aren't going to get blamed for them saying that. And we just got to verify that that's the problem we focus on and then sort of move on. So these are sort of some of the things that I try to build within the culture to try and get people to speak up about things, especially if it's something that our partners and customers are dealing with that's a problem that we need to fix. And if I don't know about it, maybe it doesn't get fixed as quickly. So we try to foster that type of culture. Doesn't always work. Depends on the people, but I'm still trying and making sure we do our best to make that the culture. So.
Definitely. So yeah. Do you want to hire me? No. One of the things, it was really, I would say, energetic. The talk that we and actually I believe that we opened so many topics and we didn't close any, but yeah, that might be good. And toward end of our conversation, I would just want to ask, and this might sound cheesy or so, what do you see? What future brings? What will happen in the next 5 years? I mean, privately, you and I talked about that quite often, but. I would like, to understand your perspective and being on the top of the hill and seeing down the road.
Yeah, I think, I don't think you can talk about the future without talking about AI. So I think that's going to be a key area. It's just really how that technology will develop. If you call it a technology even, right, it's a... it's something that's going to be developed, right? And we call it a technology now, but I think it's going to be intertwined within how we do things, both personally and professionally. It's already starting to, as we all know, right? So everybody's got a Siri or a Google, assistant, and it's listening in, right? So we all talk about that, saying, "Is it listening to me? It's starting to do this, that, whatever." So I think that aspects on the personal side are certainly going to be in that area. Back to what we were talking about before, there's a lot of data being created, but the actual intelligence being, pulled out of it, there's still a lot to do there. And so, part of it is there's a lot of new data that's being created that we just, we're not really getting the intelligence out of it that we could be. So that's one aspect that I think will improve as we move forward. And that's going to link to things like edge technologies that we spoke about. I think that's going to be an area of growth. So as 5G develops, then edge solutions become more and more important. We're ready for that, and we've already got solutions in the pipe as well as ready now that can take advantage of that and give customers an advantage now that they potentially don't have, leveraging that technology. And it's all about speed, right? And having the right compute power in the right place to get to the right solution quicker. And so that aspect, I think, is definitely going to change. If we kind of look at, back to the very, very original topic we had about the pandemic and, driving digital transformation, if we call it that, if we just simplify that down to how people will work, right? Because how people will work affects productivity, and you talk about the next 5 years. So without increasing productivity, and economists look at per capita GDP and all the rest of it, without increasing that, we're not going to make as much progress as we'd like, right? So I think coming back to the use of technology, and Lenovo's really been trying to push it. For example, we did like CAD on VDI, and CAD was something that's not usually done through VDI, right? But partly a push to try and get more flexibility, but also the pandemic side accelerated some of that. Get designers to work from anywhere, right? So that trend is only going to continue, and I think it's a really good thing. But one of the aspects I think that that's gone too far one way, and I think one of the things that I feel is that some people are thinking that that's not the right thing, because I feel personally that we've gone too far in that remote direction too quickly. So it's great, to have this time with you here, right? But you probably see our office is not that populated, right? I'm not sure if you've seen. But so I think that as we move through, there's going to be more of a balance on the worker side of remote versus in the office. And I think the right balance is definitely a hybrid type environment. There's some things that work better for face-to-face in the office. There are others that don't need to be in the office. Yeah. And so I think that will balance itself out, with technology, with the use of AI, as we move forward through the next 3 to 5 years. So I think, the edge side for enterprise, certainly. For the personal side, I think it would be AI utilizing through cell phones and things like that. So I think that one of the things that really needs to improve is how we really utilize the tools we have, right? So a lot of the tools at the moment are in our mobile phone. And we're going to look at our phone and do that sort of stuff. So I think at a personal level, and there's going to be a lot of companies around that will improve that interface. How you do it, maybe it's through 3D glasses or virtual reality, augmented reality. A lot of that sort of technology is coming out now. So I think that what that does is improve the interface between you and technology. Right? It allows you not only to go through your phone, but through other devices, wherever you look or whatever, gives you information quickly. That allows you to be more productive. So I think a lot of those aspects will really start to come out as well. So and at Lenovo, we're doing a lot in that space. So I think we've got a lot of excitement coming through in the next few years.
Definitely, and all data you shared now with me, it was hard to process. So if I could summarize it, that would be mostly like AI, edge, as well, and the way that we store and manipulate with data, and looking forward to see more and more interesting thing coming out of your kitchen.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot, John. It was really a pleasure talking to you. We will continue this offline. And to everyone, thanks a lot again for watching us and listening to us. Till the next time. Bye.